thank you everyone for coming to this session on digital worker, the rise of the digital worker. My name is Jane Pendlebury. I am the CEO of HOSPA, the Hospitality Professionals Association. And we do a lot in the technology space, in hotels, restaurants, any hospitality business. But it's not about me today, it's about my panel, so I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves, starting with Mel.
My name's Melanie Cole, and I'm the head of the reservations sales centre for Claremont Hotels. We have 17 hotels in our portfolio, and you can book up to 5,000 guest bedrooms in our estate every night.
Hi, I'm Neil Cryer. I'm head of IT operations for Village. We have 33 hotels across the country, and our hotels are a little bit different to your standard hotels, split in between leisure, food and beverage and hotels. And that's me.
Hello, Anish Gupta from Centelli. I'm the managing director. We provide digital workers as a solution, and we've got the fortunate position of working with Mel and Neil. And every day our digital workers are processing many transactions, downloading hundreds of reports, processing thousands of emails a single day, stuff that people shouldn't be doing but are doing, and we're trying to automate that.
What a great panel! I can't go wrong, can I? It's going to be brilliant. So we are going to talk about digital workers, but I think possibly if we just set the scene with what the biggest challenges are that you're meeting in the industry today. Neil, do you want to kick off on that?
Yeah. So probably like everybody here, we want expenditure to drop. You want income to increase, and looking around. Staffing issues, wage issues, COVID, for example. We have issues everywhere as an industry. So looking across the different avenues, the pressures are there on time and effort.
I couldn't agree more. Staffing is a huge issue, especially since COVID. I myself probably spend a day and a half on human resources. It's very, very difficult to find people, to keep the retention going, or actually just letting them arrive on the day, because there seems to be a different trend where people don't come anymore. So staffing is huge, huge, huge.
I was on a panel earlier this morning and we talked about recruitment and how the challenge is to keep people, to get people to turn up, and then once you find someone and offer them the job, they then try and negotiate more money and have another offer from somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think to make their job interested as well. There's a lot of, as we'll go on to, there's a lot of tasks, certainly in hotels, that are labour intensive, but that can be quite boring. So as we'll move on to, is making someone want to come to work.
Making it a rewarding environment and maybe getting rid of some of those mundane tasks. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? So Anish, you're the expert here on the digital worker. Would you like to explain why you've labelled these people, these functions as digital workers?
Yeah, sure. So digital workers are underpinned by a solution called RPA, or robotic process automation. Now, if you take robotics, Oxford Dictionary describes a robot as any mechanism that makes the job of a human easier by automating the things a human would do. That's fine when we think of a shop floor, manufacturing, for example, and we think of a warehouse where a robot's moving a good from point A to point B. But what happens in the back office, or what happens in the RSC, where it's not really physical movement, but it's data that's moving from point A to point B. So if I take the thousands of emails we have, emails are coming in hotels asking for a reservation, asking for a cancellation. Now, in a perfect world, these would be integrated and they would not be emails, but we don't live in a perfect world. The market's very dynamic and there's a constant stream of new websites coming up and they say, we'll just send you an email. So email is still a lot of traffic that we see. In that case, how can you help an employee say, rather than mechanically just moving data from point A to point B, in this case, an email into a PMS, can we automate that? And that's the kind of things we're picking up. So the more the routine, the more mundane it is, the better it is for a digital worker, because a digital worker doesn't get bored. It's going to work 24/7 once it's automated. it's going to have 100% accuracy. A person's going to lose concentration no matter what you do. 15, 20 minutes, they're going to need a break, right? We need a break after that, whereas a digital worker doesn't. Guests are booking 24/7, and we see this. We see patterns where guests are putting in reservations at 3 a.m. And if you have humans doing it, they'll come in at 9 a.m. and pick it up. And that's fine, but it starts to create a backlog. Whereas if it's automated, then that process is running 24/7 and the backlog's never building. So what we're trying to do with digital workers is saying, let's look at the routine, let's look at the mundane, things that need to happen. These aren't processes that we can get rid of. They need to happen, but where we are putting our expensive human resources, let's automate it so the humans can go off and focus on something else that's a little bit more cognitive.
And freeing up those people to talk to the people, which is what we're all about. This is hospitality. We are at the hospitality show, so it makes perfect sense for that. So Neil, you were a very early adopter of digital workers. Did you even know there was such a thing as a digital worker?
The simple answer, no. How I came across it is, as Anisha referred to, our contact centre having lots of emails, processing, not getting around to processing, just physically manpower. I tend to look outside of hospitality, different verticals, and I came across an article on finance and UiPath, which is what the product Anish uses. We're championing automation and RPA within the finance industry and how they processed thousands and thousands of requests. Delved a bit further into numerous different avenues. I'd already been in contact with Centilli and Anish's company for something else, and we started talking, looking at some other suppliers, and selected Anish. And then it flourished, into what actually RPA could do. But the important thing to say is also what it can't do, and that's a key thing I think to understand is what the parameters of RPA is.
And when you were at that stage, and now looking back, did you know what you were venturing down? Did you understand the path you were going down?
Well, the starting point was contact centre, the volume of emails that were coming in. Since then, we've learned and explored lots of different avenues. And as Anish mentioned already, we've got analysts that were creating 33 reports, for example, for a particular revenue strand, amalgamating and then creating pivot tables, moving data around effectively. And it would take them anything 2-3 days to create a report that by the time it was created, it's out of date and nobody's watching it. Whereas now they're coming in, let's say on a Monday morning, and that report is sat there waiting to be analysed and acted on rather than, well, I've got to run 33 reports and sit there and wait for them to be produced.
Brilliant. So I'll come on to you, Anish, after. I'm just thinking about this microphone moving around freely. So that's what Neil described there makes perfect sense for a digital worker, and that's a perfect task to create, put data together to create a report. And Neil mentioned finance there. What are ideal scenarios for RPA, for robotic process automation?
The ideal scenarios are ones which are more the repetition, the better it is. Okay, because the return is much higher, the greater the repetition. Now, that doesn't mean that it's only the repetitive processes that you look at. Like the report Neil was describing, that report was actually being run once a week because of the effort it was taking. And the team used to use that the entire week, whereas now it's being done daily. It is done only once a day, but the gain of having fresh data every single day to run the day is much higher than once a week. The tasks we're looking at for RPA, for digital workers, are the ones which are more rules-based, more routine tasks. There is an element of AI involved, and you can do it, but that's probably 10 to 15% of what we do. The 85% of what we do is all still rules-based. So a simple way we say whether a task is good to be automated or not is, how long would you take a human, if you were to bring somebody new in, how much training would you need to give them before they can do that particular task? If you're looking for somebody who's got to have many years of experience, let's say handling a difficult guest, that's not ideal for automation. You've got to leave that to a person who can make a judgment to say, here's how I should go about it. But if the task is going to take them just half an hour to explain, and it'll be only a part of their day, we're not saying this is a full job. If it's going to take them half an hour to explain, don't tell them half an hour, get rid of it, keep it automated, and actually have them focused on something that is going to take them longer to do. Take them a few months of experience to build up about the brand, about how you interact, about the experience. And that's where people then enjoy. So the ideal tasks are ones which are 30 minutes, 45 minutes. The bulk of what we do, they've been explained to us in 10 minutes. Just yesterday, we got one example, a customer, they've just make a recording and saying, can you take care of this? It was 3 minutes, 27 seconds long, right? Took us 2 days to automate. They need it done by the end of the month. It's actually going to be finished by Thursday, right? About 8,000 bookings that needed updating because of a change in pricing. They'll all be done. It'll be done with 100% accuracy. They will know every single reservation that's been touched. They will have a log to say what's been updated in it, what was it before. With a digital worker, we can ask it to log anything we need to log. So it's not a case of just giving it off to a black box and coming back. You actually see what it's doing, just like you would do with a person as well. So simple routine tasks, high volume are ideal, or ones which have to happen by a certain time. That's the kind of things which are ideal for a digital worker.
Thank you. So yeah, that does make perfect sense. What are you using it for? At
So
Claremont?
we use the digital worker, as Anisha said, for many of the processes that we do. So anything that a human can do, we can train the digital worker to do that. So we get a lot of reservations that are still being made manually. We are then giving that to the digital worker. In the past, we would have different setups that needed to happen depending on how the bookings were being paid for, and that would be done by a human, which, as you can imagine, is quite monotonous and it just keeps taking away. It's tedious. So now we're using the digital workers to do that. There's no errors, there's no mistakes. If there is anything that we do pick up, it is so fantastic because you're able to go straight away and say, we need this little tweak, we need that little tweak, and it happens immediately. It's changed our world. It's been really, really, really fantastic. And as Anish said, there's no sickness, there's no lateness, there's no, oh, I'm tired, I can't do this. They keep going and keep going. It's a fantastic platform to be using.
And are your team happy with that? Do they miss
Oh,
any of
yes.
these? They don't miss it. They don't miss those mundane
No, not
tasks.
at all.
So either one of you or Neil can answer this one. When you very first, oh, you're handing it over straight away. When you very first started, what's the process you go through? You knew what your problem was. How did you explain that?
Slowly, yeah. I think you touched on it there. How were the staff? There is a misconception. People think, well, how's this going to affect my job? Those people that were creating those reports on a daily basis, that's my job. That's what I do every day. I come in and I run that report and it takes me all day, and then I merge it and then I create the data, and you're going to automate that. What am I going to do? And it's sitting down with them, explaining, saying, you're an analyst. You're not a data mover. What this tool is going to do is allow you to have the data on 9 o'clock, and you can analyze it, you can act on it, you can feed back into the exec team who can make decisions on the business and pivot and move to whichever direction we need to quicker than sitting there laboriously pulling data. So it's spinning it as positively as possible, because it wasn't a case of removing labour for us. It was enabling people to add value, and moving data around is not adding value.
And how did you actually do that? Sort of day one, when whoever Anish sent, or if it was Anish himself, turned up at your place. How does that happen?
One person at a time. It is literally as that, is sitting down and finding those key people that have got enthusiasm, and they're there. There were a number of different people within the business. One particular, Dan, was in our contact centre. He took hold of it and really he understood it. He got the bigger picture and really developed and worked with the Centilli team to find solutions.
I was just going to say, presumably you have to understand that yourself before you can even start to think about automating it.
We do, but as I said, the tasks are actually that we're picking up are quite simple. So in this case, if I take Dan and the first project we did for him, it was actually taking emails that were coming in and filing them away. And they were getting about, I think it was about 1,500 to 2,000 emails that needed to be done with. A very simple task, takes about 2 seconds to do. The logic was very simple, but the volume was so high that he said, I don't know the emails we really should be addressing versus this noise that's coming into the mailbox that we need to keep, but they're keeping us away from the actual emails we want to get to. We're just getting inundated. So when it ran, the email used to clear down. And the first time he was a bit of a non-believer. He goes, I've seen this before. It's going to take too long to do, and it's not going to deliver results. First time we ran it, in about 3 seconds, it cleared off 300 emails. And he goes, no, it didn't do that. Something's wrong here. We'll run it again. I spoke to him a week later, and he goes, now every time it runs, we're actually sitting, sometimes we get some popcorn, we get some food in, and we just watch it run and the email go down. And 2 weeks later, it actually flipped on us, where he was calling us and saying, oh, something's gone wrong. It's not run because I've got 300 emails and I don't know which ones I should be doing. So it became an integral part of the team where when it didn't do its job, which initial stabilization took us a little while to do, when it didn't run, he goes, I can't figure out which ones to address. And now we've been running this for 3 years for him. And it's been doing a great job because, again, he goes, I know exactly what I need to do. My team's focused on it. They can ignore all the noise that comes into the mailbox and they focus on the ones that need to do. A few months later, I said, Dan, how's it going now? He goes, something's happened that I wasn't expecting. He goes, our revenue's gone up. I go, yeah, but you're not in charge of revenue. He goes, exactly, we're not in charge. But because our contact center staff are spending time with the guest, they're able to actually interact with the guests a lot better. And they're happier, they're enjoying it, and they're actually able to upsell, they're able to sell other services that we have. And it's just been wonderful. So it's taking that routine away that people don't really want to be doing. The initial hurdle's there. Initially, you'll find people who say, this is my job. But then you need to understand that you either need somebody who says, no, that's not really your job. That's what you should be doing. And in 80% of the cases, actually, Jane, people come to us and they'd say, please take this away. Please take this away.
Just to add, one of the positives was those staff that Anisha mentioning that used to have to process those emails hated that job. It was a case of who's going to put their hand up to do that job every day, of see those hundreds, if not thousands of mails in that inbox and cherry pick which ones you're going to process. Whereas they were taken off that job and they were actually on the contact center adding value. So it was a positive as well for their work life.
And for a general manager who doesn't have to sit labouring over a report and looking at that, they are up there talking to the guests, which is what everybody wants when they're in a hotel, right, or that kind of environment. And presumably those people who thought it was their job to put all that data together have found different roles and flourished elsewhere and properly doing a hospitality type job now. Is it a similar process with Claremont, or do you do anything sort of slightly different?
So for us, it is a lot about processes. So just in December, we gave a project to Anish, and one worker would spend about 3 hours a day doing that process. Now that we've given it to Anish, they are able to do it super quickly, and the actual workers are actually able to deal with real humans and real situations and investigate properly. They have said to me it has changed their lives because they are not just doing monotonous over and over and over in their day. You can imagine when you're doing all those processes every day in your day job, it's not very stimulating. Now they're able to do a lot more and engage a lot more with the guests that we have.
So now both of your teams are totally bought into RPA and the digital worker. Can you remember what it was like when you were first installing it? Not just from the actual worker's point of view, but maybe getting the buy-in from senior management. You, especially Neil, coming in from a technical perspective, having read about it, did you get the support of operational people, maybe not senior to you, but in looking at it from a different perspective?
Yes and no. It was a challenge. There were a lot of people that sort of nodded and yeah, we understand, and then went away and did the same thing again. But I think, like Anish said, or I mentioned earlier, start small and start to build those tasks. Find a place within the business that is positive to it, and it will grow, because once those tasks start showing, people are looking over the fence and oh, that is really good. I want some of that. And then you start having doors knocked on quite quickly, and spreading throughout the business.
So Anish, are these experiences typical across hospitality? Are what Neil and Mel saying, is that what you hear once you're established and you're working in an environment? Is that very typical? And are there problems typical?
So it is very typical of, and not just in hospitality, even across the other industries we see as well. There is a time when the penny drops and they say, oh, I get what this is and what it can do. And effectively, all a digital worker is doing is it's replicating exactly what a person does. And the number of times I've said saying, so how can it do this? My simple answer back is, well, can you train a person to do it? And if the answer is yes, you can train someone, we can train a digital worker to do it. If you can't train and you say that's a judgment call, so we had invoice processing and they said some invoices we allow and some we don't. The tolerance isn't hard, it depends upon the supplier, and said no, we can't have a digital worker do that. It has to be rules-based and we don't want judgment calls coming in. But beyond that, anything else that is rules-based can be done. Where we struggle with is, our challenges when we're looking to deploy it is that a lot of times when the transaction volume is high, organizations don't necessarily understand the actual gamut of variations that exist within a business process. Because the volume is so high, they're dealing with each issue, and when an issue comes up, they resolve it and try to move to the next one. Whereas once we've automated it, what we find is we end up automating about 80%, and then the other 20% just start to surface because the 80% have gone away. So we do actually try to recognize saying, how quick is this going to go in? When are we going to hit the 80% mark? And when can we aim to hit the 100% mark? So it's not a solution that is, it's not a wand that we wave and saying everything's just done. It is a period of engagement and discovery that happens. And we found some shocking things. We found we're doing payment processing for a customer, and we still kept finding 2 months in saying people are going in and taking manual payments. And that was credit exposure for this organization. But they said people can't be doing this, and they had to then change their training program, make sure they do authorization changes to stop transactions like that happening. So there's a lot that we uncover after the initial phase has been done. But the way we engage, and that's why we don't call it the technology. Technology delivers a part of it. When we're looking at a digital worker, we say, you've now offboarded this process to a digital worker, and this team member needs to operate just like a team member would. And it needs to handle exceptions just like you would handle exceptions. So a lot of the work we do is around the initial automation, exception management, and then trying to get it away so the business doesn't have to worry about it at all.
And in hospitality, I guess more than other industries, that does then free up that person to go and to deal with that on a personal level, which will so often be the case.
And I think that's definitely one trend we do see in hospitality. The staffing challenges are very high. It's very difficult. Everybody says they're saying it is so hard to find people, train them, and then keep them. And the amount of time it takes, that it's just not worth it. Whereas now, once you get rid of this, actually, I think it's a positive sell to say, routine tasks, no, you don't need to worry about it. We've got you engaged on more complex tasks, and actually people enjoy it.
It's reminding me of the session we were in this morning. I've got some familiar faces. We talked about revenue management and how, as a career, that has changed so significantly. over the last 20 years. And a lot of that isn't necessarily RPA, but it is to do with putting in technology and then freeing up the people to let their creativity flow. And it just makes everything much more fun. So looking at the projects that you both did in your hotels, are there things you would do differently now with the experience that you've gained? Because you're both real trailblazers, really, because an awful lot of people haven't even looked at this, let alone adopted it. So I guess there must be things that you learned that you can share.
Yeah, you would think, but because it was such a new thing for us, I think the one I keep coming back repeating is starting small. And not trying to get too excited, which we did. We looked at everything and thought, right, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And sometimes people got overexcited and looked at processes that weren't applicable for RPA. But once we steadied the ship and along with Dan, colleague, within the contact centre, got that hold in, I think that steadied us, and we've accelerated since then. So starting, I keep saying it, but starting small is definitely the key. Not getting too carried away.
Is that what you did, Mel, as well?
Well, from my point of view, it's slightly different. When I joined Claremont Hotels, Centelli were already in the business. I had never heard of digital workers. It was completely new to me. And I have to be fair, in the beginning, I wasn't really engaged because I didn't really know what it was doing until you start your own project and, as you said, start small, and then you see the reward of what you're doing and the productivity behind it, you become completely engaged. It's absolutely fantastic.
I actually remember my first conversation with Centelli, and I knew a tiny bit about it. He's here somewhere. Where are you, Sam? He's hiding. He must be here somewhere. And he's there you are at the back. And I said I knew a tiny bit. I knew enough to be dangerous and not enough to talk about it. And the more he talked about it, the more questions I asked, and I find it absolutely fascinating. But I think it is quite a leap of faith, isn't it? At the beginning, that must be the hardest bit, and I guess that must be from everyone's point of view, from the supplier to convince people that it will work, and then from your point of view to be confident that it's going to work.
Yeah, there was a lot of reading done before actually starting, but like Anish said, that proof was in the pudding. We started those small projects, although a large volume. It showed it straight away, and Dan was a great voice within the business, spreading the word, and that's what you need. You need lots of those people spreading the word, pushing it upwards, saying this is a great product, as with anything in the business.
And are you putting it into more departments or actually seeing opportunities now?
We are seeing a lot more opportunities. We are growing our digital workers a lot more. And that's also from the productivity side for the humans, because they're able to interact with other humans. And being in the hospitality industry, that's what we should be doing. So anything that is process bound, we are actually going to elevate ours now in the hope we'll get to about 75% automation of everything that we do, which will be so rewarding for the business, for the guests, for the colleagues that work for us. So we're looking forward to the positivity that these new phases are going to bring in for us.
Absolutely, and the guest has no idea that it's going on, so all they see is a much more relaxed person with time to talk to them, which is what it's all about.
It's the speed as well, as Anish referred to. It's 24/7. Most businesses, even if you have a 24-hour team, which very few of us do, are doing these processes, it generally starts at early morning and finishes it in early afternoon or late afternoon. And then the whole night goes through, whereas you can have your digital worker just seamlessly ticking along, doing everything 24/7. And the efficiencies that brings to the guest is markable, because they're getting the information delivered to them a lot quicker.
Being in the age that we are today, you want a response immediately. You don't want to be waiting until somebody opens at 9 and then come 6:30 they're gone. With the digital worker, you're getting everything done 24 hours a day.
I think that's a perfect time just to briefly stop and see if anyone's got any questions. We just in case there is anything burning in the audience here, anybody wants to ask. Oh, there is.
So I can see this is very applicable to hotels. What kind of other businesses can this be applied to, and how small?
So we work across a number of different industries, and it doesn't matter what it is. So a digital worker is automating what a person does, which is keyboard, mouse, and screen. So it can apply to any industry, any task that a person's doing. I've automated some of the things that I do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. And rather than doing it by clicking buttons, I just let it run and do whatever it needs to do. So it actually does apply. We've done restaurants where we're doing menu changes. So menu change form comes in, global chain, and needs to be done in 4 different systems, needs to be synchronized. We check the form, whether it has all the information, and then make the change, send information back. We've got real estate where an approval needs to happen. The approval, because the estate agents are all moving around, we send it as a text, get it approved on text, record it for audit purposes, and then execute the rest within the system. Financial services, applications coming in, processing of applications. Automotive, we do pricing. So for one of the organizations, we look at different websites for them, calculate the price that they want, update it in their CRM. They were constrained. They had one person could do 40 pricing calculations a month for them, and they wanted to grow to 400. So that meant hiring a team of 10, which comes with its own overhead. So it doesn't matter, as long as the task is routine and it's all screen-based. A digital worker doesn't need any special access. So it gets the same access as an employee does, as any person would, and it just replicates that. So applicable very wide, broad.
I think the thing is worth mentioning the process that we follow. So we just do a screen share, and Anisha's team record the process, and then they take that away, break it out into its elements, and create the bot. So as long as you can do it on a screen, the bot can do it. So have a think about what you do as a manual task.
So does that mean you don't need system integration? I'm thinking property management system, central reservation system, or are there elements of that?
No, we've gone across platforms. So as long as we can give the bot logins, it will change systems. We've used it in interface scenarios where we're moving data from one product into posting, which would traditionally be an interface, expensive usually. So now we're just running what was a manual task at the end of the night, running a report, and then they were banking that. The bot will do that. So we're a Google house, so we've got Workspace. So we have logins to Google, so it uses the email function of Google, but it's also using our PMS's S&T. So it's logging into S&T to look at the booking. So it's looking at the email, taking the reference number, then going into S&T, processing, and then coming back out again. So it's multifaceted, yeah.
Once a process is automated, you see stuff happening on the screen just like a person would. The difference is there is no person doing it. It is actually just an automated program that's executing the work.
And you can also pause as well. There's an extra element to it, isn't it, which is called an unattended bot, isn't it? That if there's a process that needs a tick in a box, our finance, for example, we were using it for creating new suppliers on our payment run. Obviously, there's a point where we wanted to authenticate that the bank account details of that company were actually real, and it was a real company before it went into the process. Because once it's in, someone could raise an invoice and pay me, for example. So we created a bot that received the email or the form. We had a Google form that requested a new company, XYZ company. They filled out all the details of the bank account details. The bot would take that and put it into our accounting system. But at that point, it would stop because it needed someone, a human, to say, okay, yep, I've checked all of those, carry on. And it would finish the task. So you can do 2 ways. You can do the whole task automated, or you can stop along the task.
We've got Annabelle in the audience there, ready to give anyone the mic if they'd like it. No? Okay, we'll carry on then. We'll carry on. We've got another 10 minutes, I think, so that's fine. Got loads more questions. But if you do have anything, please just... Oh, Kat.
So I'm here sort of seeing IT and reservation service centre here. How have you found that you've been able to apply that across other parts of the organisation, sales and marketing, for example? If you have.
Yeah, we haven't used it in marketing yet, but we've used it in revenue. The reports that I was mentioning was the revenue team. We've used it heavily in finance, moving data around. But if I can't explain how simple it is, because if you've got a task that you're doing manually now, the bot can do it. There hasn't been a task that I've thrown at Anish yet that he hasn't been able to do. There is obviously, there has been a few tasks that haven't had the ROI. When we look at them, some have been presented, and it's something that happens once a year. But we've created rate codes. You know, there's been a massive update of rate codes. The bot's done it. So rather than a team of people or one person sitting there for weeks creating rate codes, the bot's done it, and it's done it in less than a day. COVID was great success there, but in the bot terms, it was a great success, because what the bot did for us is the amount of changes, as you all probably experienced, in bookings. 1 minute you were open, the next minute you were closed. Well, before the bot, a team would have had to have gone through all those bookings, and probably you guys would have had to have done this and notify all those people that were about to check in that we're not open anymore. And what's going to happen to your booking? How are we going to transfer it? The bot did it all.
I think we're all...
Sorry, Jay. We also use ours in terms of accounting. So if folios need to be sent out or invoices, and we're just engaging now with Centelli to look at our meeting and events inbox and see what they can assist us with.
It's very clever, isn't it? Brilliant. I'm casting my mind back to years ago when certain PMS suppliers were charging an absolute fortune for an interface which we all knew was fairly... Do you want the mic back? You're looking at... Right, anyway, any more questions, or shall I just go on with some other ones that we have here? So I was going to ask about the adoption of digital workers, but I think we've really covered it, because if people haven't already adopted it and they've sat in here today, the chances are they're going to look into it. I can only see it increasing, because it doesn't matter what the environment is. It can be as luxury as you like, because it's never going to hit the guest, is it? It'll just benefit the guest.
No, I think it's anyone in IT will say the bots are coming. You know, we in the hospitality industry are in a privileged position, I think, that you will never take away that person in front of a guest. But it's moving our money, our wages to those people rather than the processes that a bot can do.
And it does depend on the environment about how much tech you take on. I always sing the praises of Citizen M hotels that allow you to check yourself. You know, when you book a Citizen M, you know you're going to check yourself in, but there's always someone there. And you get to know what to expect, don't you? And a digital worker is going to deliver that so consistently, more so than any human could ever do.
It. Like Mel said, the digital worker doesn't go wrong. You know, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't eat. It can, as long as you tell it to do the right thing in the first place. We all get tired, we all make mistakes. Everyone's, as they say, human. And so mistakes happen, and that has an impact going downstream. The bot, that will never happen. Because it just does what you've asked it to do.
Brilliant. Right. Okay. Anish, you look like you want to have the mic? No.
No, it's the rate code example we did. I think we did. In the end, it was 6,700 rate codes, and the estimate was a person was going to take about four days to do it, and it was about 10 clicks per rate code. So that's about 67,000 clicks for a person to do without a mistake across 4 days. I'm sure it's a week of their life that they were really looking forward to. It happened eventually in 4 hours, and 6,700 rate codes logged, everything that's changed, and 100% accuracy. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to pick up. What we say is in a perfect world, would you have a person doing that activity? And if the answer is no, that's what you consider for a digital worker.
I think the last question would be, do you think, and you should keep the microphone for that, do you think with the new generation of worker coming up, the human ones I'm talking about now, that they will be more, find a company that has embraced digital technology in the backside, in the back end, and have digital workers, will that company be more attractive to the younger workers coming in because they know that they're not going to have to sit there, as most of us probably in the room did start with the most boring jobs. I guess it gives you the edge as an employer as well.
Correct. And I think positioning it as to say that there are solutions that you can use to get away from the routine and make job more meaningful for a human actually does make their lives much better, and they're engaging a lot better with the organization, which then addresses attrition challenges and retention challenges. So absolutely, Jane, it will, we've seen a positive impact already, and I don't think it's an option. Trying to bring people in to say, you're going to do this and that's all you're going to do 24/7, it's not going to go too far.
No, absolutely. And people are looking, we're from the conversation this morning, from a recruiter's point of view, it's a candidate's market at the moment. So anything that an employer can do to make it more appealing, then has got to be a good thing. We're coming towards the end of our time. So quick opportunity for questions if there are any. And I just thought we'd touch on the fact that I bet there's a couple of people in this audience, maybe the people that left, that thought we were going to be talking about robots moving luggage around or checking people in. I think we've all seen those Japanese promotional ads where the hotel is totally run. So apologies for anyone who thought we were talking about robots that were going to move around like that. I hope you find this is a lot more interesting. Any final comments? Anything I've forgotten to ask you that you would like to touch on? Anish, any final words?
I think it is a new concept, and despite us doing a lot of our work within hospitality, and we've done pretty much, I think we've done a lot of processes that we're going to see for other places, but we still end up doing a proof of concept every single place because they go, I want to see this working on our systems and our processes, and that's fine. That's what we do. But once you see it working, we've seen a lot of jaws drops and after that, it is quick, it is easy.
Just to reiterate what I said before, I think do your research, find out what an RPA is and isn't, start small and find a good provider, and I can recommend one. But yeah, do your research on it because you can get into a quagmire of rubbish. There's a lot of people out there that are saying it's RPA when it's not. So yeah, just make sure you've read up a lot before.
Brilliant. Did you want to say anything last? Right, we are pretty much at the end of our time, but I know that we'll all be around for a few minutes afterwards, so I can imagine that you will have questions either from Mel with her experience at Claremont, for Neil from Village, and of course Anish, who is the digital worker expert extraordinaire. But thank you all very much for joining me, because I think it's been explained nice and clearly, and we've clearly got some people buying in here. So do ask us any questions, but thank you all very much for coming, and thank you to my wonderful panelists.